One of the reasons that I started this channel was because I wanted a record of the things I'm building, the decisions I'm making, and how my finances evolve over time. I believe a lot of people are interested in money, building things, building a business, financial independence, etc. But very few people share what that actually looks like in real life. Not the polished version, but the real version. So today I'm going to start sharing the first public portfolio update on this channel. And the idea is very simple. At the end of every quarter, I'll be sharing the performance of what I call my public portfolio, the assets, investments, and projects that I'm comfortably tracking publicly online. I'm not going to share every euro that I own because I believe there is a difference between privacy and transparency, but I still want to share enough so we can follow the journey together and see how these decisions compound over time. Before we getting into the numbers, let me give you a little context. I'm 28 years old and I live in Portugal. Most people are surprised when they hear I earn the Portuguese minimum wage, but the reality is more nuanced than that. 4 years ago, I was working as a freelance illustrator and graphic designer. Some months were very good. I actually was surprised how good they can be being a freelancer, but once you work worldwide and you start attracting some clients, the numbers can really grow. But at the same time, some months were a little bit stressful. And like most freelancers, I was constantly balancing client work, uncertainty, and the pressure of generating income month after month. At the same time, my partner and I were growing our online craft business. And as this business grew, we decided it was a good option for me to enter in the company and start receiving a salary instead of being just a freelancer. And for me, that was a little bit weird initially because I was used to receive money during the middle of the month or by the end of the month or as long as I finished the project. But right now with the salary, I had to start putting myself in the shoes of employee and start receiving the money just by the end of the month. Now, technically, I could pay myself more because we are both together for the same company, but I chose not to because at this stage of my life, the Portuguese minimum wage is more than enough for me to cover my basic expenses and for my personal needs. So I'd rather keep the money inside the company where it can be reinvested and help the business grow faster. From a purely personal income perspective, that might not seem the obvious decision, but I've realized that I'm far more interested in building long-term value and assets than maximizing my monthly paycheck. So for us, this structure creates more stability, keeps the business healthy financially, and allow us to focus on building something bigger than ourselves. And with this, over the last few years, the way I think about money has changed quite a lot. Of course, I still care about income, right? But I spend much more time planning and thinking about ownership, assets, cash flow, and the ability to create value over a long period of time. That's probably been the biggest shift in my financial mindset. And the question has become less how much can I earn this month and more what can I build that continues creating value for years to come. Before I show you my portfolio, I believe it's important to show you how I think about investing now. I don't see investing as a way to get rich quickly, but for me, investing is a way to turn today's work into future opportunities. For example, every euro that I earn has a few possible destinations. Some of it gets spent, some of it gets used to create experiences, and some of it gets invested into assets that continue creating value long after I've done the work to earn the money. I also recognize, and I truly recognize, that I'm in a position where I can take more risk than most people because I still live in my parents' house. Most of my living expenses are covered, and I don't have the responsibilities that come with raising a family or a mortgage. So that gives me room to experiment, learn, and take calculated risks while the consequences are relatively small. And I know that won't always be the case, but right now I want to take it as an advantage and I want to make the most of it. So before we go into the numbers, I want to make something very, very clear for you. This is my public portfolio. Like I said in the beginning, there is a difference between transparency and privacy. So what I'm about to show you, it's the collection of investments and assets that I've decided to track publicly on this channel. And it is not a complete picture of my finances. For example, I do maintain a healthy emergency fund and cash reserves outside of this portfolio that can comfortably cover several months of expenses if needed. And from the people that I heard online talking about these topics and people that I've spoke with personally, everyone says the same thing, which is you must have an emergency fund before ever start investing. So please keep that in mind. Oh, and the goal of these updates isn't to share every detail of my personal finances, but rather to document them and inspire people that are planning or are already doing the same thing and show how these investments perform and build over time. So with that out of the way, let's now look at the portfolio. First, we have XTB, a brokerage firm based in Poland, here in Europe. And this is where I hold the majority of my ETF and stock investments. At the end of quarter one, the portfolio was worth a little bit over 34,000 euros. And I'm not going to discuss any individual positions here because I don't think that's the most valuable part of these updates. What interests me more here is the process itself. I'm consistently investing month after month and allowing time to do the most heavy lifting. Next is Trade Republic, and at first glance you might notice something weird because there is only 100 euros sitting in the account, and normally this is where I keep cash available for opportunities and short-term needs. However, during the first quarter of the year, some opportunities appeared in the stock market that I felt comfortable taking advantage of, so I intentionally deployed most of that capital elsewhere. So the low balance isn't an oversight. It's exactly where I expect it to be. It's also worth mentioning that this account isn't my emergency fund account. As I mentioned earlier, I keep separate cash reserves outside of this public portfolio. Then we have ViInvest and Bondora, and combined these platforms represent a little bit over 18,000 euros in the portfolio. These are peer-to-peer lending investments, which means they come with a different risk profile than ETFs. Right now, I'm comfortable with that level of risk at this stage of my life because, again, I still live with my parents, my expenses are relatively low, and I have fewer financial responsibilities than many people my age. So that gives me room to take calculated risks, learn from mistakes, and potential benefit from higher returns. That doesn't mean ignoring risk, it simply means recognizing that in my current situation allows me to tolerate a little bit more risk than I might be able in the future. And finally, the largest asset in the portfolio, the commercial property. At the end of quarter one, I valued it at 124,030 euros, and currently this property is rented to a local bakery and generates me rental income every month. But the income isn't actually the reason I like this investment so much. What I really appreciate most is ownership. Owning something tangible that exists independently of my time and continues creating value regardless of whether I'm actively working. Buying this property completely changed the way I think about wealth, investing, and financial independence. Alright, this first update is really the baseline, it's the starting point, and it's the number where in a few years or in a few months we'll look back and compare and see hopefully how much we've grown. I know that over the coming years some quarters will be amazing, others won't. Markets will go up, markets will go down, the business will have good moments and then also bad moments. But what I'm really interested isn't in any individual quarter, but the progress over time. What I really want to see is what happens in 5, 10 or even 20 years, because that's where compounding becomes visible. A good example of this mindset happened recently. In May this year, I started going to the gym in my father's electric scooter. It was a tiny decision, almost insignificant on its own, but that's how, in my opinion, most of financial progress happens. Right now, I'm not spending so much in gas because I can charge these batteries at home, and since we have solar panels, the price per charging is very low. So in my opinion, progress in investments, assets, or even our personal life doesn't happen in just one huge breakthrough. Normally it happens through thousands of small decisions repeated consistently over time. The same way investments compound, habits compound too. Before finishing, I want to share 3 goals I'm working towards this year. The first is helping our business reach 250,000 euros in annual revenue. And out of all the goals, this is the one that I think about the most. Not because of the number itself, but because building a business has become one of the most meaningful projects in my life. Because every day I wake up with so much power and desire to do things. And this is something I don't really want to lose. The second goal was traveling somewhere new, and this one is already completed because earlier this year we had a chance to visit Madeira, which was one of the destinations we wanted to visit for so long. And it was a reminder that money isn't only about investments and accumulating assets, but also about enjoying life while you're building it. The third goal is preparing for an eventual purchase of a home for my partner and I. We don't have a specific deadline or a target date, but it's something we're actively planning for. And many of the financial decisions we're making today are influenced by that future goal. Alright, so this is the first public portfolio update on the channel. At the end of every quarter, I'll plan to come back and share the updated numbers, talk about what's changed, and document the decisions I'm making along the way. Probably the portfolio will grow, or maybe it won't, but that's the risk I'm willing to take, and I believe it's funny and meaningful to document this journey and share it with you, because I believe I'm not alone and there are other people in this world trying to do the same thing. And I wish I had more people sharing these kinds of insights of the business with me before. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do. So I'll see you in the next video. I hope you like this one and take care.